Good day. I am IVM Alipio from BSHE2A, and I'll be critiquing this specific painting or scene from the film The Loving Vincent. In this painting, I observed that in order to represent a raindrop, the artist uses both thick and thin lines horizontally, a moving dot that helps us transmit information and give directions by giving our eyes a visual representation of what is happening in the artwork. As for the colors, it is raining in the picture, so it is evident that the artwork contrasts cold tones with a permanent black color. And for the shapes, the shape or form is an organic form of art, for its structure of work has grown naturally from the author's subject and materials. And its shading techniques in this drawing is the artist used a mixture of shading techniques. I can find both straight lines, contour lines, and even some scribbles, which create the texture of a tree that moves through the wind. And for the balance, the art has an asymmetrical balance that showcases inequality, wherein the half of the painting doesn't mirror from the other half. For the proportion, the different size of houses and trees complements each other that makes the art much more realistic. And lastly, for the perspective, the painting has an atmospheric perspective because the atmosphere of the painting affects the appearance of things when they are looked at from a distance. The trees that were moved by the breeze brought on by the rain had informed viewers of what was happening in the painting, or the situation the painting wanted to portray. The painting has unity, and it complements each other well. The artwork may be balanced informally, yet it nonetheless conveys completeness as a whole, since the artist leaves enough space between the gaps. You cannot see a man sprinting, attempting to avoid getting soaked in the scene, which is gloomy due to heavy rain. In general, oil is the primary medium used by the artist.
Good day, everyone. I am Maricilia Arliamas from BSHE2A. One of my favorite scenes in the cinematography entitled The Loving Vincent was when the man whose name is Armand and the lady Margaret were on the rice field on a sunny day. It was a time where they are having a deep conversation about what happened and what kind of relationship Margaret and Vincent have. So let's proceed to the look. Number one is lines. As we can see in the picture, it consists of different lines. There are horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines, which allow a viewer to identify the direction and the movement of a certain things. The second one is the color. It consists of two primary colors, which is yellow and blue. For yellow is for the rice field and the blue is for the sky. On the other hand, the secondary color is green, which is those grasses, which represents those grasses, and its intensity emphasizes the high saturation of some colors for their vivid, rich, and bright colors, while others are darker that produce more sensation in our eyes and evokes emotion in us. So, the third one is shapes. In this artwork, shapes can also be found in the lines, on the figure of a man and woman, and in the shape of those clouds. Value and color, which help me to differentiate them. The fourth one is the shading technique. As we observe in the picture, it uses brush stroke for the lines. It applies brush strokes in correct order to prevent other elements combined together. It also uses color grading because some parts are darker than the others, like the clouds and the figures of a man and woman. As a result, it allows us to focus on the rhythm and the dynamic of the artwork. It makes the characters stand out from the background, focusing the viewer's attention on them. The fifth one is balance. Balance. This artwork has a symmetrical balance. As we focus on the picture, the color, structure, parts, and details have a certain visual stability. It appears they have the same repetition in the arrangement of its design, from its color, lines, and etc. The sixth one is proportion. In this picture, I can sense that this artwork conveys a feeling of unity, for it creates a harmonious relationship between all of its parts. These figures are united. Then the seventh is the perspective. As we look at the whole way or road of the picture, it gives a realistic perspective because it consists of two-dimensional lines that create illusions of distance in our eyes from the lines to the vanishing points of the artwork. So now, let's proceed to letter B. What do the shape and the lines forms like? Is there unity in the image? In this picture, nature is depicted in the forms and lines. In this artwork, we can see different forms of images, such as man, woman, clouds, a rice field, and a flower. The shape of a woman's head are trying to show to us that she is looking at a man. And from the figure of a man, we can determine that he is sitting due to how his two legs are shaped. And we can also see the problematic expression based on its upper body shapes. So I can say that it is really has a unity, since due to those shapes, it gives us an idea of their actions and how they feel or react in the situation. We can then visualize the situation. It also achieves the meaning they wanted us to convey. So, how does the artist utilize the space? The artist uses negative and positive space. The negative space are the rice field, sky, and the hallway, while the positive space are the men and women. It only means that space helps in emphasizing the main elements of the artwork. Are there characters? What do they look like? Yes, there are two characters in the artwork, the man and the woman. It looks like they are having a conversations. So, what is the settings or situation? The setting was they were on the rice field. What coloring techniques are being utilized? Oil painting is used in the coloring techniques. The artist employs impasto, a coating technique in which thick layers of paints are applied to canvases to create a heavy texture that highlights the brush strokes.
Hi everyone, I am Ginizal Monte Carlo. So my favorite scene or image in The Loving Vincent is the Starry Night because Van Gogh, the artist, used all the components and principles to create one of the most famous paintings of all time. So line. So as I observe, no, we'll know that line frequently directs your gaze towards emphasis or moves it throughout the composition. So as I observe, the vertical lines of the dark tree draw my attention upward. So the diagonal and curving lines of the sky draw my attention to the moon. So which also serve as the focal point. So and then my attention is drawn to the light diagonal line that descends to the left and back to the dark tree. So color, so as you can see from the image above, the painting is mostly composed of cool, dark, and light colors, with some instance yellows added to enhance the contrast. So I could contend rather that the Starry Night lacks sufficient value to effectively convey volume. So both the moon and the dark bush lack color variety, so which makes them appear less realistic. So, but the hills in the painting's background use value effectively as they go from medium blue to dark navy, which coincidentally gives them a rounded appearance. So shape. So the Starry Night is plainly a two-dimensional artwork. So due to its two-dimensionality, So the Starry Night has little actual form, so yet the roundedness of the hills does suggest form. And shading technique, so the impasto technique is one of the shading methods employed by the artist in the painting of Starry Night. So an Italian term of mixing that refers to a painting method when paint is applied thickly to a surface so that brush strokes or palette knife lines are evident. So balance, so the large dark tree in the painting above counteracts or balance the light moon in the adjacent corner. So proportion, so everything in the artwork above is in its proper place and has the perfect amount of contrast. So that is my observation. So in perspective, this perspective in Starry Night is a reflection of both his immediate observation of the countryside as seen through his window and the thoughts and feelings stirred up. Letter B, there are 5 questions. So the first question is, what do the shapes and lines form like? Is there unity in the images? So vertical, horizontal, and diagonal lines can all be seen forming in the Starry Night. When you examine the Starry Night, you can see that it is unified and coherent rather than disjointed or confusing. So the consistency of the lines throughout the Starry Night give it a feeling of harmony. So the question number 2 is, how does the artist utilize the space? So the artist has properly exploited space, simple overlapping, proper perspective utilization, and placing darker. So more distinct images in the front, now fading to lighter, blurrier images in the back are all techniques an artist may employ to represent space. So even though Van Gogh didn't use all of these methods in this painting, it can be said that he made good use of the available space. So the question number 3 is, are there characteristics? What do they look like? So as far as I can tell, the artwork lacks any characters. Instead, it is dominated by a night sky filled with chromatic blue swirls, a dazzling golden crescent moon, and stars shown as radiating orbs. So next question is, what is the setting or situation? So based on my research, the setting or situation in Starry Night over the ruin is depicts the view from the east facing window on his asylum room at Saint Remedy Province, just before sunrise with the addition of imaginary village. So what coloring technique are being utilized? So the impasto technique is usually associated with the work of Vincent van Gogh. So it is said that he applied the paints directly onto the canvas and simply mixed them together with his own fingers. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kasajid Indrina Padua, so I'm sharing my movie critic from the story of Loving Vincent. So we've chose this story because we've find it so interesting. So first, let's talk about my favorite scene of the movie, which is Vincent is on his last breath. He wanted to fight his life, but yet he don't know what to do to fight his own life. Well, I can totally relate that scenario to my life, everyday life, where I still want to live my life, but I don't know what to do or what am I going to do to fight this life. But still, I'll still continue to fight my own life. Okay, let's proceed now to the elements and principles of arts. The first one is the line. In the movie, it is very much seen that it is highlighted from the stroke that is being applied to emphasize the feelings or the situation in that story, and also the movements of the story. Also, the shadow technique is seen in the said movie. The balance and as well as the proportion in that movie, where it is very visible to be highlighted in that to the viewer and also to depicts emotions to the audience, and also the overall perspective in the movie that was very clear to the perspective of the audience. Perspective, I mean. Okay, let's proceed to the next questions that is allocated to the letter B. The first question is, what do the shapes and lines form like? So, the shape and lines are very seen and essential in the movie where it is provoke feelings. So let's proceed to the number 2. How does the artist utilize the space so the artist utilized the space by utilizing each space that was seen in the movie. So let's proceed to the number 3. Are there characters? What they look like? Yes, there are characters and each one of them looks like painting, moving painting in a picture. So lastly, what coloring techniques is or are being utilized? The technique that was used in the movie is what we call the oil painting technique.
So, one of my favorite scenes in that Loving Vincent movie is that when Theo said or tell the story about Vincent to Presadera. So, he said that Vincent was depressed and stressed at a young age where he felt he was neglected by his mother because he said that he never felt being the firstborn. He felt like a last one. So I was saddened by the idea that Vincent was a very genius man. However, he was neglected by his father and his mother. So, as what I have said, I have tackled about the favorite scene about the Loving Vincent by Van Gogh. So, we're going to talk about the line, colors, shape, shading technique, balance, proportion, and perspective. So what are those? Those are elements and also the principles of art. Some of it was the principle of art. So, lines, the artist used the horizontal, vertical, diagonal, and curved type of lines. In colors, the color was black and white using the value of color. So the shape. The shape was combination of organic or so-called free-form and geometric shapes. So those are the two types of shapes. So the shading technique was the start of a line of the stroke. So as what I have said, the start of the line is always be the point. The balance is a balance of a symmetrical balance, or so we called it was informal balance. So proportion, the mother and the son are near, so they are bigger. The subjects that are nearer, so they are bigger. So in the perspective is seen as a mother neglecting the child. So those are the elements and the principles of art.